All right, so we're going to start this thing. My name is Bill Ball. I'm a founding member of the Sales Enablement Society, if you weren't on the webinar about 5 minutes ago. And the reason I mention that is it actually has a lot to do with what we're talking about today. So to be a founding member in the Sales Enablement Society, you were a group of about 100 people who went down to Florida in November, so right around Thanksgiving. So you were brave and committed. And through the course of a day, we broke up into work groups. We had working sessions on high-level concepts like the definition of sales enablement and what, hierarchy should the function report into, high-level stuff. At the end of the day, and this is kind of the highlight for me, we all signed this massive piece of paper. It was like the founders, and ratified the society into existence. And the reason I bring that up is because we've come a long way from there. Are we still talking about the definition? Yes. Are we still talking about what function or what hierarchy the function should report into? Yes, we are, because we're part of an amazing evolving profession, but we have come a long way. So if you're in shoes like mine, I'm a practitioner. I'm entrenched in my business. I put together some deliverables. What I'm starting to see in my business is there are room for growth initiatives in places in the business that I don't have any experience in or I haven't ventured into before. And so while the idea of venturing into those places sounds like a grand adventure, I've got to keep spinning these plates over here too. So what we're going to talk about, or at least part of what we're going to talk about today with Tanner and Matt from DSG, is how they've helped practitioners venture into these tough areas, attack the growth initiatives that made the real difference for their company, help them keep the other things afloat, and made them look like heroes. Before I turn it over to Tanner and Matt, though, I want to let everybody know you're doing a great job in the chat so far, but please fire away at the questions. We're going to pull over on the side of the road and answer questions as we get breaks. This isn't going to be a wait till the end for questions kind of thing at all. We want to make this super interactive, and we're going to prove it. So I'm done. Tanner and Matt, please take it away.
No, that's perfect. I'm going to show my screen to set up the topic, and then Matt and I are going to kind of share duties here, sharing some of the insights. So I'm Tanner Mazzell. I lead sales and marketing for DSG. Been here for 20 years, specialized in sales enablement for a long time. And what's fun at DSG is we just get to work with a lot of talented sales enablement leaders. There's a lot of people out there in this webinar, a lot of people in the society that we've had a chance to work with over the years. And some of the most strategic sales enablement leaders, they really have taken a lot of ownership for growth strategies. And so we're just going to get into some really specific scenarios, some client stories, frameworks and tools and templates that you can use immediately in your own businesses. And I do want to reiterate what Bill was just saying. So we prefer to have as much of the Q&A as we possibly can. And so as we share an idea or a model or what a playbook is or a challenge a company was facing or whatever it is, just jump in with questions. Bill's going to moderate those. He'll interrupt us. We'll be pausing to ask Bill what he's seeing out there, and we'll just do that right there as we go. I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt, to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Tanner. We're going to start our conversation today with the reality that everything is virtual. So obviously we're on a virtual call today. As we're creating content and tools and training for our selling teams, we're doing that virtually. As we're pushing into training, that's all gone virtual. And probably the most important piece of this is that all of our sellers are selling remotely. And so we're gonna start with that reality, that premise. And as we're building out our programs and initiatives, everything is virtual. And as we think about the conversations that we want our sellers to be having, how can they be more strategic? How can they connect to the actual growth initiatives that our customers have? And how can that be a meaningful part of what we do? And so Tanner and I spend a lot of time talking with senior sales leaders, marketing leaders, BU leaders, presidents. And as we ask the simple question, how are you going to grow the business? Or more specifically, how are you going to grow the business in the second half of 2020? These are some of the common initiatives that we hear. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but we're going to do some debating across our team today to determine what's most important for your business, and even which of these initiatives we might focus our time on. It could be cross-sell. We hear a lot of that. It could be we have existing accounts and we have an opportunity to sell another product opportunity to extend our value in an existing account. It could be selling through partners. So we've got a partner that's in our channel and we're going to co-sell with them, distributors, resellers, named partners. I want you to continue to look at this list, and we're going to do our first poll. And so as we introduce the idea of a growth initiative, we want to get your feedback as we're starting. Kind of where are you on that journey? And so these are 4 questions. Bill, it'd probably be good to just bring the poll up, and I'll read these as people are thinking. So the voting starts. It could be that you just did it and it all went great. It could be you're planning for one in the second half of the year. It could be the reason you're on the call today is because you want to make it happen, but you're not positive how to get started, or you're just hoping to learn more. We'll let you guys keep voting. Appreciate that.
I love watching these live polls. It's like a horse race, but planning one for second half of 2020 is not running away with it yet, but looking pretty strong.
Coming around the turn. That's
All right.
great.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. So as Bill said, we got a lot of feedback. 43% planning for one in the second half of 2020, which is perfect. And then second, you want to make it happen. And that's what we're all about here today. So Tanner, why don't we dive into how we're going to make it happen?
All right, let's do it. So 2 pieces to this. One is just answering the question, why sales enablement for ownership of growth initiatives, for being a driver internally. So let's just say that, cross-sell was something that your organization was focused on. The reason sales enablement is so uniquely positioned to own it is because such a big part of what we all do in enablement that has the biggest impact is we make things simple and useful for salespeople and for channel partners. And a lot of organizations just don't have somebody that has that vision. That's not there. No one really owns that. No one does an amazing job at that. No one does that consistently over time. And so all of us that have chosen to specialize in sales enablement, we're the ones that can get marketing and product and senior sales leaders and experts in the organization to all rally around, hey, let's take our big ideas and make them simple and useful. And so what we're going to do today is we didn't want to, it's a lot of content to prepare for 9 different initiatives. So we picked 4 that we see a lot right now. And in a second, we're going to do a poll and we'll let you pick which of these 2 we dig into. We've got content for all 4 that are in blue here, and then we'll go deep. And then what we're going to do in terms of going deep is we'll share how enablement leaders can frame up those initiatives and get alignment internally, how playbook approaches have been accelerators, some of the mistakes organizations make, and what your idea could be for your company to really break through. And we'll have a really simple case study for each one of these. So cross-sell would be, we're trying to sell wider and deeper in current accounts by selling something they haven't already bought, cross-selling. Product launch is product launch. Vertical selling, I'm going to sell this one. We have a client, Fastly, that's had a ton of success around selling in a more vertical way versus horizontal. And they've also done a really good job shifting to a more strategic message and salespeople learning how to sell to technical and strategic buyers. And last night I went back and forth with the sales enablement leader, John Chinello, for Fastly. He's also started the chapter for Sales Enablement Society in San Diego. He had some really good observations, and I just built a slide around some of the ideas he was sharing last night. And then finally, it's integrated solutions. So integrated solutions would be not solution selling. It's literally your sales team needs to sell packaged, bundled products. So I need to sell A, B, and C together, products plus services, sell a platform, but you're asking the sales team, hey, we're going to grow if we sell an integrated solution. So those are the four. Let's go live with the poll and we'll get our two that we're going to focus our time on.
Hey, Tanner, before you jump into that, really good question that pertains to all of this.
Yep.
Breton, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that right because we're connected on LinkedIn, and otherwise I'd be a bad person. Breton said, define growth initiative succinctly.
Growth initiative would be a bet that your company is placing that's going to grow revenue. And so like if you look at some of these that we haven't kind of hit on, like if your company has decided we're going to grow revenue through selling more through the channel, or we're going to grow revenue by selling multi-product deals, or we're going to grow revenue by selling in a vertical way versus horizontal, that's a growth initiative. And sometimes companies obviously don't do a great job getting specific about the outcomes and the metrics. And that's what we in Enablement can help fix. That's my definition. Matt, do you have any other perspective on that?
No, I think you're putting resources behind it. So as enablement leaders, how can we put together the right programs to reach those outcomes and kind of turn strategy into results? So your executives will have the strategy. They know where they're going, why the company is going there. But our opportunity is to inform the how.
It's always changing, right? Like for all of us, if you just think about the last year or two in your business, whether it's happening semi-annual, annual, sometimes quarterly, you got senior leaders always saying, hey, this is true north. This is the big idea. This is what we want to focus on. And so how do you make that practical?
Great. You ready to jump into poll number 2, adventure?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
No pressure. This is just how we're going to spend our next 45 minutes or more.
No pressure. Oh man, this one's a little tighter.
It's tight. We might have to do more than 2.
We'll see what everybody can
You're all
fit.
4 great topics, and we've got great content for all of them. So
Yep. All right, looks like we're reaching a stopping point here.
okay, integrated solutions definitely wins the day, and then cross-sell beat out vertical selling. So we'll do integrated solutions, we'll do cross-sell, and if we've got time, there were enough votes for vertical selling, we might just go share that case study. And so if we have time, we'll hit the case study from Fastly just so people can see what they accomplished and some of those ideas from John.
I'm going to give all the listeners a hint that you guys have a great story on that. So hopefully we make time for that.
Yeah, we will. We'll try. All right, let's kick into integrated solutions. Luckily, that I don't have to jump out of the deck. It was the first one up here. So we did have a guess this might be high on the list. Just amazing how many companies, this is what they're framing up right now or where they're moving to. And so this first slide is just the idea that it's usually about multi-product solutions to customer business needs. Like that's how we're going to get to a multi-product deal, is building it around the customer's world. The outcomes are typically larger strategic deals, competitive advantage, moving up market, and there's always a change vision. And so sometimes it's the product level to business impact story. Sometimes we've been selling to individual buyers, to committees, been real reactive to interest coming to us, versus proactively going out and positioning the platform or the strategic. And then real individual sales pursuits, a lot of times when you move to an integrated solution or a multi-product deal, it's a team selling motion. All of this to say, the big idea for this whole slide is this is the kind of summary that you as a sales enablement leader should create for your company. So just think about internally, everybody's talking about integrated solutions. They're talking about the big bet around multi-product deals. And you push for, hey, let's get senior sales, marketing, product, other business unit leaders to agree on writing down the big idea, the outcomes we're actually going to measure, and what's the change vision we're going to enable to, because you're about to, as an enablement leader, create content, tools, and training that are going to help salespeople do everything on the right and to actually achieve those outcomes. But this is really helpful. And so I've seen multiple enablement leaders when they push for internally getting leaders to really get a little bit more specific, a little bit more tangible about where we're actually going and what it's going to take and what we're going to measure. It just sets you up for success. Just think about initiatives you've been part of where there wasn't a lot of clarity and it was real fuzzy, and it just gets frustrating and you never know if you got to success. And then you look back and did we actually do something that can prove sales enablement outcomes? So I'm gonna do one more slide here, Bill, and then I want to pause and just kind of get questions and thoughts from the audience. But I do want to cover this real quick. It's helpful to think about, as an enablement leader, the challenges that are probably going to crop up. And it may not be these exact words, but you're going to have salespeople that say, oh, that's a cool idea, but I'm just going to keep selling what I already know. And managers say, hey, great idea, but I've got one metric that matters. It's hitting my number. You may have marketing leaders. This is going to be very common, is that they're going to default to, okay, I'm going to put a ton of content into a massive document. And along with these 15 or 20 or 50 sales tools, you're going to be able to have success in sales. And then for product, it's a, hey, great marketing idea, but my job's to develop and manage the products. And so the idea behind this slide is, for enablement leaders, what if you were the one coming back internally and bring very concrete ideas and some pushback? And so your idea for salespeople was getting clear on incentives and why this even matters to a seller who, if they don't make the shift, they're going to become relevant or get beat by competitors. And a manager where you just go straight to the chief revenue officer and it's a top-down strategy that they're going to require of their team. And marketing, you just help them reimagine the power of how they do enablement through a playbook approach to get sales and marketing aligned, because they get frustrated that there's not alignment. And then product, it's really about pulling them in and getting their insight. So I'm going to pause here, Bill. I think we've had some hands raised and some questions, and so guide us.
All right, so a lot of stuff coming in on the chat, and I want to address that just quickly before we jump into the questions. Raphael mentions, he says that he likes the easy way to map all the elements of the enablement journey. It's definitely easy, and I personally like how you guys have broken it down by audience. Dan mentioned integrated solutions can also increase our revenue, mind share, and influence with channel partners. So we do have a lot of enablement people thinking about channel partners.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And let's get to the questions. Jesse's asking, does this include integrated services with our products from organizations outside of our company?
All the time. And so earlier when Matt was referencing partner co-selling, that's exactly what we're talking about. So many of our clients, it's not an integrated solution if it doesn't include the services or solution from a partner that's outside our organization. And so that just makes it all the more important. And you'll see this in a second, this idea of a video-based playbook, but how do you get you and those partners on the same page on the integrated story? Because it's great to have a strategic partnership and something in the news and the market, and we're pushing that. But if that doesn't turn into how do our salespeople and their salespeople tell that story and lead a compelling conversation, gosh, that integrated strategy just falls apart.
Raphael is responding saying, or actually Pascal is saying, breaking the silo is a common challenge, right? So having a roadmap for this is huge. And Breton is echoing that again. She's saying it validates a ton of pain they have aligning cross-departmentally. Any other questions, guys, about this approach with integrated solutions?
And we're going to go deeper. We're not done with this topic. We'll definitely cover some more concepts here.
Why don't we keep rolling then and see what else everybody has to say?
3 ways that you can accelerate momentum in your organization. One is defined sales plays. And when we say a sales play, we mean something time-bound. So imagine that it's the multi-product or integrated solution. Let's just use the example with including services outside your company. A defined sales play would say, we're saying that in the next 6 months, we're going to get to these specific outcomes. Like we're actually going to create this number of opportunities. It'll be this amount of value in the pipeline. We'll have met with this many senior CIOs or operations leader or whoever the target is for that integrated solution. But we're going to have a whole set of outcomes that we're going to measure, and it can happen in phases, right? In the next 6 months, we want to see this happen in our pipeline. In the next 6 months, you want to see this amount of conversion, but you're getting to, let's not put so much focus on the enablement and content tools and training that we get to the end and we feel really good about the enablement, but we're not as clear on did it actually get to those results. The second would be a playbook approach, and we're about to show an example of a playbook approach that makes things simple. It's video first, real practical, bite-sized content that keeps it simple for salespeople. And then the cross-functional content creation. So everybody that talked about silos and barriers and multiple departments, it's getting those different groups to actually create what we're about to show together and have input and everybody have buy-in and have a stake in it, versus it's just enablement doing it, or we're just asking marketing to fill something in and give it to us to put in our enablement technology. It's about that content creation and buy-in. And so I'm going to pause here after this one as well, but this is the idea that whether you call it a video playbook or not, it's the idea of the packaging. It's the idea that you take what could be very mysterious to a salesperson or a partner, and we're going to give you the secret sauce. We're going to give you the ingredients to deliver the integrated story and pursue those deals. We're going to give you what to know. We're going to give you what to do. We're going to give you what to say, and we're going to give you what to show. And make that unbelievably useful and practical, where no seller be confused. Like if they went into their playbook, they'd see videos of people on your team explaining how to tell that story in different scenarios and how to ask smart questions and how to handle competitive situations around that and how to go wider and build a coalition. But you're giving them really specific guidance. I don't want to read all these bullet points, but these are really good examples of what other organizations, your peers in the industry, what they're building to enable an integrated strategy. All right, Bill, this is probably a good time to pause again.
So we just have a couple questions here coming in, but also some comments too. Raphael mentions that, hey, I find this very insightful and well structured. Can we share the recording afterwards within our enablement org? Absolutely, right? We're going to get that turned around. Mitch had a question about something that I see that's pretty common, right? Where a lot of us as practitioners, we've got these buckets that you're talking about. Most of them down, maybe not as detailed as you guys have it in such a straightforward way. One of the big challenges that we see, he says, regarding getting marketing on board to sales-focused playbooks, does anyone else use an enablement tool, content repository to drive insights with data? I wasn't sure, Tanner, if you guys advise your customers on that at all, and how that sort of fits into this equation?
Is the question really kind of how are they using a sophisticated kind of sales-focused content management system?
Maybe we can hear more from Mitch about that. I think his question may have been more to like, okay, marketing has their stuff and we've got our stuff, and how do you get everybody on board?
Oh, that's a great question. And so, I mean, the way that, and you'll see this in the success story we're about to cover. Actually, you know what? Let's just answer it with a story. And so the way that you do that, this is Zix. So Zix is one of our clients where we just finished this project, and they had this new integrated company story. And it's because of a big acquisition and some products they had created internally. And they had 45 days before a sales kickoff, and you've got to really rapidly create the right message. And what made it so powerful at Zix is that sales leaders, top salespeople, marketing, and product, they went through a process with DSG to create all that. And so there was something for them, they felt like you had to, it could have been something that's not DSG, right? But you needed somebody, the third party, to come in and say, I'm going to be the referee. I've got a framework. We've got a whole process where in a matter of weeks, we can have all the discovery, all the debate. We can document, give everybody a chance to validate, but it's not going to be marketing does their stuff and then we do our version of it. We're actually going to do it all together, and it's going to be a cross-functional process. And that was really important. Like if you look at some of these from twos here, like they're trying to get to this confidence and delivering what they call the secure modern workplace, but super technical. And that's how marketing was creating content to business outcome, we're real responding to security product requests, to being a strategic advisor. It's always been point solutions. So all of our marketing collaterals here. And then we really haven't had a compelling visual story that everybody could latch onto. And so part of why that project, and I did a webinar actually with the CMO last week of Zix on a product marketing community webinar. And he was just talking about, hey, we had so much success. I mean, this was the early metrics in the first kind of 30 to 45 days, but he pointed to, it was that cross-functional message creation that just made all the difference. So I don't know if that answered all of the question, but maybe Bill, you could ask some follow-ups.
Mitch validated. Apparently we crushed that. So, so that's good. I got a couple more for you if we got a minute.
This is perfect. We're gonna.
All right. Yeah. I'm trying to just keep track of it all, quite frankly. A lot of people are chiming in about the tech that they use, and I think that's great for everybody in the group. Phil asked, any tips on implementing a playbook strategy in a culture where regional sales leaders have a lot of autonomy? That's something I can relate to a lot. So I'll repeat it again. Any tips on implementing a playbook strategy in a culture where regional sales leaders have a lot of autonomy?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a decision by senior sales leaders that we're going to allow for a balance. There's going to be autonomy, but there's some standards that, because the strategy is so important, we're going to get on the same page in some core areas. But then what usually they do is they have the senior sales leader handpick some of those regional leaders, and they're part of discovery. They're part of the design workshops, whether they're virtual or in person. They're part of the planning for implementation, and they have ownership. And there's just something about it feeling like it was by sales for sales, and it's not just enablement's making me do it, marketing's making me do it, product, my head of sales is making me do it, but I'm driving it, and just giving some ownership to those sales leaders is so helpful. And Matt, if there's anything else you're thinking of, feel free to chime in.
Bring those regional leaders into the process. So Tanner talked about this cross-functional workshop. Have representation. So if you have a influencer, a thought leader, if you know certain regional sales leaders have a strong voice, that they're respected, bring them into the discovery. As you're creating playbook templates, get their feedback. As we have a first version of content, debate the ideas with them. It's so easy these days in terms of virtual validation. Jump on a Zoom call, jump on a Teams, and get their feedback and buy-in. We can all expect the first question to be, as we launch this, is who helped create it? Happens every time. Every time we're going to get the question, who helped create it? So just anticipate it and make it a strength of the program by saying, hey, this regional leader spoke into it. This regional leader spoke into it. This was important to them. And it's amazing how salespeople want to learn from other salespeople, other thought leaders, and when they buy into, hey, this was created for us, by us, then it's really powerful.
And you guys are getting some echoes in the chat. Joy said you need to have a cultural adoption workshop. So I think that speaks a little bit to the in-between of what you're talking about, Tanner, and what you're talking about, Matt, where I heard pilot and create some champions that you can replicate and show some of the people that aren't as willing to adopt something, a business case. And Matt, you're hitting me right here in the middle, right? It's make people part of your process. Don't go into a dark room and come back and throw something over the fence. So those are the two best pieces of advice I can agree on. It looks like a lot of people in the chat do as well.
Love it.
Anything else here, Bill?
I think we're ready to keep going.
Okay, so let's jump out of integrated solution. Oh, actually, we're gonna finish it up with a poll. And so the poll is going to be that integrated solutions poll. And what we want you to think about is there's going to be 6 questions that are popping up here as I'm talking. And which one of these questions do you feel like is the most important one for your organization to answer? Like, what's the biggest rock, the biggest question no one's asking, but for your organization, if you had to pick one that kind of coming out of this is something your team, your company needs to answer, which one will it be? Let's go.
While people are filling out the poll, Corky mentioned, I love how Corky phrases this, cross-functional buy-in makes a difference between rolling out another program versus sales transformation.
It's true.
It's very true.
We've actually got a client right now. It's just so frustrating where we just don't have support for getting sales people and sales leaders involved in the process to create and validate. And we just know how the story ends. And a lot of great work. There'll be a great playbook, but there's just something huge missing. And it's very hard to ever go back and get that.
All right, looks like we've still got some activity, and we got a couple of close ones on integrated story and are we giving salespeople what to know, do, say. They're fighting to the tooth here.
I think those two are winning. I think we can close it.
All right.
Well, I think that's good. I think the compelling so what, I think that is what's missing, is that it's a great idea. We'd love to sell multi-product deals, but we haven't come up with a so what for customers, and salespeople will smell that. They will sniff that out. They will know that's reality, and they won't believe in it either. And so that's such a good one. And that's something that you obviously can push in your organization. Are we giving salespeople what to know, do, say, show? Boy, there's just, it sounds so easy, but gosh, the simplicity is so helpful of internally going to marketing, product, all the teams saying, hey, let's just kind of boil it down and let's decide on what salespeople need to know, do, say, show to sell a multi-product deal. That's great. All right, I think we should shift to cross-sell. That is not the next one on the list, and so, or in the slide deck. So I'm gonna jump down to cross-sell. And Matt, I'm gonna let you take it away.
It's perfect. So we talked about this a bit earlier in terms of we have existing accounts and we want to push into opportunities where we can sell across the full product portfolio. And during the COVID season, we've seen with our clients, this is one of the top sales plays. This is the lever that so many companies are pulling because existing customers will talk to us. So I'm a seller and I have a good relationship. We've all gone virtual, we're remote. It's been easier for our clients to get existing customers to talk to them and how we can create additional value. Certainly we're seeing an uptick in terms of new accounts and prospecting as we move further into the summer, but this has been a key play, will continue to be that. So we want greater share, we want higher retention, we want to take an opportunity in this season to potentially displace a competitor that's out there. And so here's the change that we're seeing. What is that white space? So maybe we've been playing defense in an account, and this is the perfect season to uncover how we can create additional value and position the full solution portfolio for the team. A lot of persona work. So as we think about cross-selling, potentially that's a new audience. So how do we build confidence and capability across our selling team to go reach that new audience? That's typically a really big part of a cross-sell initiative. So let's just think about our sellers. Picture that it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're in their home office, their apartment, and they're thinking about their next sales call. What does their world look like? And so we've used a visual to help in terms of just what that might look like to be a seller, and I've got a cross-sell initiative, and I'm trying to think about all this content that I'm going to use in my 3 p.m. meeting. And we've talked about that being a tornado. And so as you think about that rep and their world, Tanner, if we go to the next one, we'll have an opportunity to say what does that look like, and specifically, what are those opportunities that I might be missing? And so potentially in an account, we've sold product A, and we have an opportunity to add product C. And that becomes an opportunity for us to tell the right story, to lead the right customer conversation to extend and cross-sell that opportunity to see. And so we want to help guide our sellers. And so as we think about challenges, we like this construct of, let's think about the challenges across department area, across function, and just where they live today. And so Tanner, on the next slide, we'll think about some of these common problems. And so it could be, from a strategy perspective, we just haven't done the right work to define the play. So where should they go next? Have we given them specific guidance on what that should look like? So if your install base is X, then here's where we want you to go. We want you to position products B and D. That could be a real problem, and our idea is to give that guidance to them through our playbooks. It could be around change. Like, it's easy just to get stuck. So what's worked for me in the past, I've had some success, and I'm going to continue to kind of move through those practices that have brought me success in the past. And so there is an element of change where we're asking them to do something different. It could be that new audience. It could be learning a new talk track. But if they're going to go wider and deeper into an account, we need to acknowledge that we need to motivate them to change. And so sales leadership is going to be crucial. They're going to be the lever for us to drive that change through their coaching and accountability. So if we provided a playbook for our managers on how they can coach to that cross-selling opportunity, how they can reinforce the right talk tracks and customer stories, they can act as that change agent for the organization. But we've got to get the buy-in from the leadership team around that growth strategy. And then from an enablement standpoint, show them what good looks like. So if I'm a seller, I want to be able to see what good looks like in our organization. And that's really helps build my confidence. And so if I know what good looks like, then I'm going to look to replicate that. I'm going to look to follow those practices that are leading to success across the team. And so when we pause here is we just think about cross-selling. These are some problems that we're seeing. Would love to get questions and comments from the team as it relates to your challenges.
All right, so we got a bunch, not surprisingly on this one, because, you know, like we talk about adoption, right? And does that mean technology or does that mean cultural? And I think that what I'm seeing a lot of is cultural. So Pascal says the biggest challenge in cross-sell I see is jeopardizing the status quo in the customer relationship. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, there's always risk. So it's an existing customer, and we've earned business, and we have a position. And so how do you extend that? Potentially, it's into another department, it's into another buying set, and ideally we get sponsored into those opportunities through the good work that we've done. But that is definitely at play. Tanner, you may have some additional.
It's just a risk reward decision. At risk reward. And so you got to have senior leaders that are making the case internally that the reward is greater than the risk, and leaving that up to sellers is hard. And so there is just an element of, that's why you kind of come back to what's on the screen now. You've got to have senior people saying, hey, the reward is so much greater than the risk. And we've got to go into every account and find the way to add more value. If we do it the right way, we're not going to freak our customers out. They're going to see and understand we're just looking to increase the value we're delivering and doing that in innovative ways.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of part of the reason that you guys exist, right? I mean, yes. This is to help practitioners do this in their organizations. Yes. Matt says, in my experience, the further the cross-sell product services from your core offering, the more friction you experience. So building credibility with clients and confidence of sellers becomes more challenging. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, we see this a ton with acquisition. And so someone in the business development team has identified a high growth area. It's always a question of how adjacent it might be, but we see some where, to Matt's point, it's going to be a leap for the team. So we're going to have to do a lot of of education and confidence building and looking at our competency models. In some cases, it's a different selling motion. And so we've seen clients that have acknowledged, hey, we've been really good at more of a transactional selling motion, or we've been a product leader and we've gotten market share through that product leader business model. And then it could be an opportunistic acquisition. It could be that they've just done some R&D and they've placed a bet, but that new selling motion could be much more consultative. It might require a much more insight-driven approach to share a new approach. It may be cutting-edge technology. A lot of times it's something just hasn't been done before. And so that creates a lot of opportunities for us as enablement leaders to anticipate that cross-selling challenge. And to Matt's point, the further afield it is from our current selling motion, then that's a higher degree of change.
Do we have time for any more questions?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of really great back and forth happening in the chat. And this is kind of my favorite part about Zoom chat on webinars is when people are like helping each other out, right? So there's multi-layers to this conversation. But if I could sum up a lot of what I'm seeing, and I threw this out in the chat and a few people said, hey, this resonates with me. How do you guys deal with the situation, whether you've got somebody at the C level or at the stakeholder level who say, we've always done it this way?
What's your interpretation of the "we've always done it this way," Bill? What do you think? What do that mean?
So when you're trying to drive something new, especially like in this case where you're trying to drive new cross-seller behavior, and they say, well, this is working okay. We've always done it this way. As a practitioner, that is a statement that infuriates me like none else almost. Like you can't see me catching on fire when somebody says that to me. But I do, at least internally, right? So I wonder, like, I know that's a big question, but I don't know if that's something you guys deal with your clients.
Why change? And so that first slide that we're showing that has the from to, like that is typically a lot of debate across the team. And we're showing just kind of 3 or 4 from tos, but typically getting that group in the room and debating the degree of change and the reason that we're changing. Yeah, exactly. Kind of the why change there becomes really critical, and having a robust dialogue and debate across the team on why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? Why change? You know, we're doing pretty well. We're hitting our quarterly numbers.
Yeah.
In some cases, people just don't understand the degree of change and the why.
And I think part of what we're promoting is if you can't get senior leadership, marketing, sales leadership, business unit leaders, whoever the right stakeholders are, you know who the stakeholders are in your company. If we can't get them to agree on a why change and the nature of the change in a real tangible way, and that there's outcomes we actually care about hitting, we wouldn't recommend pursuing the initiative. So like part of this is just raising the red flag and saying, hey, we're not ready. There may be a lot of churning and people debating, we could, but if we don't have a coalition of senior leaders agreeing on the why change and the outcomes and a very specific change vision, then potentially you need to encourage people to hit pause until we do.
Yes. Or then we're just creating good content and tools and training that's disconnected from the growth strategy.
We've had companies we've worked with where the person we were working with, an enablement or sales ops or a marketing leader, really wanted to do something, but it was a year or 2 later before we actually did the initiative because they didn't have that cross-functional senior support, and they knew it'd be a lot of time and money wasted until we had the support, which they were spot on.
Well, let's push into, for your organization, as you think about, oh yeah, it's always good to tell a story. So Panasonic is a client of ours. You'll see they've got a substantial sales team, so 500 sellers and a number of existing customers that they could increase share and create additional value. And so they did analysis in terms of one product customers, 2 product customers? How could we make a 1 product customer a 3 product customer? How could we add that additional value? And they really focused in, as Tanner circling, on their top 100 accounts. So their top 100 existing accounts, and how can we, by developing a playbook, how can we share content and tools and training that accelerates those cross-selling discussions? And you'll see some of the results that they saw. And so messaging was a big piece of this by solution. So mobile, security, taking those solutions and building out content and tools and training, how they would expand and cross-sell based upon those solutions, getting manager leaders buy-in. So how can we get managers bought in first, that this is the right set of enablement? And then from a training perspective, how do we do that on a regional and national level? And then for us, we'll use the term continuous improvement. So we're going to launch and we're going to think it's pretty good. And then our sellers are going to go out there and they're going to learn a lot that'll help us make it better. And so in order for that to become sticky, we like to use the term evergreen. So how does it become an evergreen playbook? So it's the source of our collective best thinking and experiences. That continuous enablement, month after month after month, the playbook should be getting better. And the guidance in terms of targeting what I need to know, do, say, and show should be informed by those sellers' experiences.
I know Panasonic was one of those clients where we had a head of sales that really bought into, we're not going to get to cross-sell outcomes without manager support. And so when we say regional and national training, that all started with sales leaders, and they were the ones that got trained first. And then they helped co-lead training on the strategies and message and playbooks and all the technology that was supported internally, but they were the standard bearers. And so that was a really big success outcome. We've actually worked with that leader at other companies as he's moved around to different companies over the years. And that's always been his strategic anchor, is we're not doing anything unless we've got the buy-in for first line managers to coach to it.
So I got one more question for you guys, if that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Answer this, I think, how you see fit and interpret it in your own way, because I think this is going to be an organization to organization kind of question and an opinion question. So now that I framed that out for you, it's slipping away because so many people are chatting here. What is your point of view? Michelle asked, what is your point of view on who is responsible for IDing target accounts and what to cross-sell? i.e., should ops or marketing do that for the sales reps, or should the sales rep need to identify their own prime targets? And maybe what you guys have seen as best practices in organizations and your clients.
I'll let Matt speak to best practice. Panasonic leadership decided. So you had marketing, sales, kind of ops type people that made decisions on which accounts fit the criteria, and those were assigned. And so that was something that was very much a strategic decision at Panasonic. Matt, I'm not sure if you've got other perspectives on what's best practice.
I think we want to have the highest return on sales time. And so I think giving them what we think are the right accounts and targets for them to go after. So we like to start with a top-down approach that would be informed by marketing and product and sales ops coming together and saying, hey, we've done some analysis on our installed base, and here's where we think the opportunities are. There's so many tools within a CRM system like Salesforce or Dynamics or others that you can provide that guidance in terms of accounts and where we see that white space. Adobe is a client that comes to mind that did a really good job of giving the reps an opportunity to validate that. So here's where we think your opportunities are. Here's where we think you should invest your time. Give us feedback, typically to their first line manager of, yes, I agree with these 7, but I also want to add these 3 and maybe take these 3 off based upon my account intelligence that I have. I think starting with the top down and then giving sellers an opportunity to inform that is a best practice.
Great. We've got more questions coming in, guys. So I'll let you decide if we want to attack those now or jump into something else right now and show a little bit more, and then maybe go questions at the end.
Maybe, Matt, what do you think about skipping the cross sell and real quickly kind of touching on that Fastly story, and then we can kind of go to final questions for the main session?
Yeah, and we had those slides, we could show them in terms of just what this would look like too.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do both of those. So what's Matt's referring to is a lot of times, whether it's our app, like you're seeing this content in DSG's app, the Playbook, but part of it is just getting things into a simple, easy to use format. This is that example from Zix where you've got like a CMO, you've got a top sales leader, top salesperson, you might have a specialist, but it's your people delivering content through video. It's your people that had buy-in to talk tracks and insights and what to say in a conversation. And that for a seller, they're just jumping right to, hey, who are the target buyers and talk tracks? What are my good conversation starters? What are the best communication templates to use right now? And in 1 or 2 clicks, I'm getting to, okay, you're not just telling me to cross-sell and about the outcomes and some general training. You're actually giving me the recipe, and I could go do this immediately. Like, it's not confusing. I know exactly how I would go apply it. And so they get into a playbook, and if they're meetings with an ops leader, that example earlier that someone, Bill, maybe you might mention personas, but it's that persona level content of, hey, when you talk to a persona like operations, actually, I pulled up an old version that had a change I meant to make. You'd have content, you'd have tools, you'd have training, and the training is a video of one of your people explaining exactly how to engage that audience. And if they went into a section on how to lead the in-person or virtual meeting through a story and a visual, they'd have step-by-step guidance of talking points and questions and videos on how to do it, but you're just making it really repeatable. So we keep talking about a playbook and making it practical and easy for a seller to implement an initiative. This is what we're talking about.
And so Fastly did that. So
Yeah,
they built out this type of enablement in a digital app that their team could use across different segments.
That's right. So they were, hey, we're going to go to a vertical approach. We're going to get a consistent company story. We're going to influence that buying process. We're going to broaden their vision of what's possible. We're going to do both the technical and the business end of audiences. And across our 8 verticals, we're going to give our team the kits, and they're going to learn to master those vertical messages. And this is what it looks like. So they go into their video playbook, DSU platform, but they're going in and sellers are clicking into their different playbooks. This is John Chinello. He's the Senior Director of Global Enablement. That's the chapter president in San Diego. And he sent, this is my summary of what he sent last night. He said, hey, I've got some really specific reasons that I think were the reasons that our initiative was so successful. We already talked a lot about that one, cross-functional, a lot of input from salespeople that are actually going to be the users, buyer persona content that's focused on their world. And then the enablement, it's not just an event and it's not just an asset. It's an ongoing process. Those were his big 4 observations. I think that we would have a lot of enablement leaders we've worked with that would say those are 4 that are really high on the list that are pretty important catalysts. So I think we're in 2 minutes for people that want to stay on. We'll do kind of additional questions, and Matt and I are going to stick around. I think where we want to start to wrap up here is my screen just went black. Okay, there we go. So I think where we want to wrap up here is just, for some of you on the call, this was just kind of the tip of the iceberg on what you're trying to figure out. And so if you look at this today and you say, hey, I really want to go a little bit deeper on one of the 9, or I want to go see other companies' examples of their playbooks for a specific initiative, or I just want somebody to assess. I want to talk to a consultant that's done this 20 times, 100 times, and they've seen what works for different initiatives and just assess what we're already doing. We're happy to do that. We've got a lead administrator, Robin, who you could just email her. She would get you with the right consultant. It could be me, Matt, one of our solution consultants, one of our consulting principals, a number of people on the team that would love to spend time with you. And any of those 3 topics, we're happy to spend time and go deeper. So I think Bill will wrap up the main session, but we're free for the next 30 minutes, and we'll stay here and answer any questions that are on people's minds.
We're getting some thank yous and goodbyes, but we're also getting some questions too. to speak to the 20 people who asked, will I not only be able to get the recording for this, but the slides?
We'll have the recording. Some of the slides with specific client stuff, we won't make that available.
That's why I figured I'd let you guys answer that.
Right.
But we'll try to have that come out in the wash. So on the cross-selling initiative, there was a growth mark of 21% that you were talking about, Matt. Michelle was wondering what the time frame was for that growth for the 21% for their top accounts, because like that alone, I think would sell a lot of C-level people, right?
Yeah, totally. 12 months. So we begin to talk about just kind of what will that look like 12 months later. And we always start our engagements, we want to have a baseline. So we want to start with what is the current state, what are we building off of, and then that gives us a chance to track those outcomes over time. Tanner, you could speak to some of that process in terms of how we collaborate on the right set of metrics, and in some cases, as we engage with clients, we tie our fees to those metrics as well as we engage with clients.
Yeah. The most important thing is to get your team, your leadership teams to differentiate leading indicators versus performance metrics. Like at Panasonic, there were leading indicators that had to do with how many cross-sell conversations people were leading, even getting certified on the story, getting deals that were qualified in the pipeline, that if you don't get those, you'll never get the performance metrics. And people agreeing that we're going to measure them in CRM, they're going to be reported on, and that it's not enablement holding everybody accountable, it's a sales leader holding everybody accountable. And then that turns into the performance metrics that Matt was talking about, where then over the long term, over the next 12 months, all those downstream business impacts, they happen naturally if everybody starts having the right conversations, having enough of them, they're compelling, then you see the follow through.
You have more to say on that, Tanner? Sorry.
Well, I saw a question come through where somebody said, hey, what's an example or a good example of a video playbook platform? And so.
Go ahead.
Do you want to jump to that one? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was Lorraine was the name I saw kind of come across. There's a number of different paths to go down. Obviously, the one that we know best is going to be our own. And so this journey started for us about nine years ago, but we built a video playbook app for Adobe that's evolved a lot over the years into this platform that you're seeing on your screen. But essentially, I'm in Salesforce and I'm just pulling up a video playbook. But the idea is that a seller, whether it's DSG's platform or another platform, the idea is they're going through CRM to get into the content of, hey, I just want that reminder of how to sell that particular solution that we're cross-selling, and what it is and what it does and how it works. Or, hey, I just want to go in and remember when I'm so focused on that particular product, I've got that really simple guidance on the ideal customer profile and their objectives and challenges and who are the audiences we're selling to. Or, hey, I'm just struggling to get a meeting. And so for a seller, the idea is they're just jumping around a playbook that's real easy to navigate. And marketing, they're constantly going in here and editing, and they're adding in new content, they're adding in new pages and tabs and images and updating content so that every time a seller comes in here, they're getting the latest content. And in particular, the way we see sellers interacting with video playbooks is at an opportunity level. So they'll be in an opportunity, and because they're in a certain stage, or it's a specific industry, or it's a specific scenario, they're getting served up content that guides them to what they need next. So like this example was some of our clients for needs analysis. If it was in person, they'd want to use a visual to do discovery and positioning. And they would show their team, hey, here's one of our best sellers doing it, talking points, questions, how to, but just making it really, really easy for a seller to go, I could do that. When Matt earlier said what good looks like, the video is what good looks like. This graphic that you draw is what good looks like. And then if it's a web meeting, that graphic's a slide presentation, it's animated. And it's the same kind of talking points and questions. So any other questions around video playbooks that you saw, Bill, we can answer them, but this would be a good example of what a video playbook looks like.
Let's see.
Tanner, maybe highlight why video is so important.
Oh, I mean, it's, it's like, the reason it's so important is how we all learn. Like I've got two teenagers, they're 16, and I can't remember, what it's like to have a little baby or kid, but my wife and we had a surprise baby 2 years ago that we weren't expecting, and we forgot everything, right? And so what do you do when you forget everything? You go to YouTube over and over, and you're like, how do I do this? What do I do when they do that? How do I put this together? And in 90 seconds or 2 minutes, you figure it out, right? Because it's video, and we all are attuned to watching and listening, and we get it. And salespeople are like all of us. They just seeing it, hearing it, watching it. It's compelling. You remember it. And even the analytics will show salespeople just consume it. They're so hungry for video, and they love video that's not actors, and it's not staged. It's not somebody just reading a script. It's real conversational, where if they went into a video like for a talk track and they were just trying to get messaging for, hey, I'm going to be selling to a business executive today, that video is somebody they know in the organization that gets it, and he's only talking for maybe 90 seconds.
As we work with our customers,
he's giving them exactly what they need to think about to go have a compelling conversation with a business executive. But yeah, video's everything. That's what salespeople crave.
Instant access. I can attribute that in my own experience. The one remaining question I'm seeing right now, you guys, and we still have 70 people in the group right now. Getting back to the cross-selling again, and I think this is an interesting one. How can you attribute growth to the initiative that you guys were talking about versus other activities targeted towards the same goals? Can you provide a direct linkage?
Well, that's a great question. So on the one hand, like I didn't even say this earlier when I was sharing this Fastly story, but the reason that we like to share the Fastly story, and I just lost it, I want to have that up there, is that if you track Fastly, or just go look them up right now and kind of track their business or read some of the analyst reporting, they've increased their guidance, they're firing on all cylinders, and it's a lot of factors. It's right product strategy. They have really smart people. They have a great team. They built vertical playbooks. They've done really good enablement. They've taken reinforcement seriously. It's all of that, right? And so I do think that's part of the reality for enablement is we have to internally say, hey, if we'll do a lot of the right things, including enablement, we'll get there. But it's rarely just enablement. Now, that being said, at the same time, we will have clients that will correlate the usage of playbooks and the time in playbooks, the access to content with top performers. Like they'll track who's having success and how much are they engaging the content that's meant to enable them for that success. And there is the real practical stuff like that you can do in parallel. It's just, I think you have to embrace the both and that if you're successful with a big initiative, you're going to be one really important strategic piece of it, but you're going to be one of 3 or 4 or 5 pillars, and that's okay. It's just about acknowledging that internally and getting everybody to agree, hey, there are 4 or 5 pillars, but sales enablement's the most important. It's probably the glue. It's probably what's tying everything together and making it easy for a salesperson to do it. Matt, do you have anything else? That's a really, really important question.
It's a great one. I think we go back to the leading indicators of success and tying that to momentum that we're creating and then tracking to those outcomes. And I think when you have a baseline of what your sellers are doing today, that's a great place to build from. And when everyone's seeing the growth, the attribution's fun to pass around throughout product and sales and marketing and enablement.
I've got one other thing to think about as far as the measuring the impact of initiatives. It was this, we had an example for product launch. Matt and I keep both saying sales plays over and over, but it really is, if your organization can get down to this level for a sales play, for any of these, cross-sell, integrated solutions, vertical, whatever, but that there is the documented outcomes that we're going to achieve in the next 90 days. And then we're going to update the play and have new outcomes and new metrics. And during that 90 days, this is the sales activity that we're asking salespeople to do that managers are going to support. And we're going to give you this enablement in your playbook or whatever you call it, your guide, your kit. We're going to give you the how-to videos. We're going to give you the talk tracks, the discovery guides, these tools. we're really gonna, and I'm grossly simplifying this, but I think it's helpful to see it this way. We're really gonna boil it down, and we're gonna have a very straightforward way to turn a growth initiative into a measurable roadmap that everybody internally can sign off on and support.
Tanner, I can speak from a practitioner's standpoint and say, okay, we all know this stuff, but does our audience and our stakeholders, right? And I think that's the big tricky part, right? Is how do you message this in a clear, repeatable way out to audiences and stakeholders? A lot of us have a lot of experience in making things for our salespeople, right?
Yes.
But this is making things to make things for our salespeople. And not everybody's thinking about it this way, and especially not in putting it in this clear format. So as much as, you know, like I can see myself as a practitioner saying, yep, get that, get that, get that, get that. Being everywhere at once and being able to work to scale to do this kind of stuff is another question entirely, especially with the way that you guys have put it together.
Yeah, and part of it, there's two sides to it, right? One is just using templates. Like we're just using templates right now, and so like these are templates of, you know, people on the call could facilitate discussions to build that kind of content internally. You could use a framework like this to turn something into a tangible play. You could use the idea of know, do, say, show to package and think through where the gaps are and what needs to get created. That Zix example I gave earlier, sometimes you just need somebody to do it with you the first time and have a repeatable way to do it. So Zix, I had asked the CMO that was the senior sponsor of the program, hey, what were the big four? Kind of, if you had to narrow it to 4 reasons you needed a partner to do this the first time, it was the bandwidth and speed, expert at getting people to collaboratively across groups to develop it, success, getting alignment and change to happen, and credibility with sales. And so we just led them through this process where we've got a process to do discovery alignment, create content collaboratively through whether it's web meetings or in person, capture and produce the video, create the playbook, deploy it virtually, get into a rhythm of continuous learning where you're always updating content, you're always virtually training, you're always certifying and accrediting, but just going through a flow. And so once you've been through a flow like that, it's real repeatable. But sometimes an organization just needs a third party that can objectively say, hey, here's how hundreds of companies have done it. Let's do it right one time, prove outcomes, and then you've got a repeatable approach. We've got clients that I would say have done the DSG process over and over. They just needed somebody to be a guide that, you know, that first time, or you might know somebody in your network that's done this kind of work that could be that objective third-party guide that's got resources and bandwidth and can help you do it quickly.
I think as you're doing your annual planning, we'll talk a lot about sales enablement strategy. So taking an opportunity to share, here's our sales enablement strategy with senior leadership. Here's how that's going to inform our activities, where we're spending our time, and take it into a calendar. So this is our enablement calendar. We've got a defined strategy that sales and product and marketing have all bought off on. And then that's building into our calendar. Here's first quarter priorities as a sales enablement team, second quarter, third quarter, and get that buy-in in terms of, hey, here's where we're spending our time and energy and investment. Is this still matched with the growth strategy? And our sales enablement strategy is to inform that.
Any final questions, folks, before we start wrapping this thing up? We still got 60 participants, which is a beautiful thing. Going once, going twice. This has been amazing, you guys. I think everybody's probably still taking it in and taking screenshots and that kind of thing. But just wow, you guys both summed it up extremely well.
Bill, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Fun to do this with you.
A lot of fun.
I think we're just getting a lot of thank yous at this point. So what I'm going to say is thank you guys, and thanks everyone for joining. As we mentioned, a recording is going to be available later. Tanner, do you want to flash that screen of who to reach out to on your end? Because someone did in the chat, and I copied it, said, hey, I want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just Robin at DSG Consulting, and she'll be a conduit, and I'll be available. Matt will be available. Various consultants are available depending on what your topic is, what your interest is. Yeah, we'd love to connect.
Do you guys welcome people's connections on LinkedIn?
Oh,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. I've seen about 20 come through already. So
Awesome.
those are welcome. I look forward to connecting with anybody that wants to.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks Tanner and Matt for just really taking this to a different level, and I think a lot of people really think about in their own practice. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good luck.